That stalled pipeline project from Alberta to Canada's west coast is back in the headlines. The Trans Mountain Pipeline Expansion Project will get another environmental review. The plan was stopped in its tracks when the Federal Court of Appeal ruled the government failed to consider oil tanker traffic on BC's coast and failed to properly consult Indigenous people. Well, today the Trudeau government said it is going to resolve both those things. Though, as Abigail Beeman reports, there's still no timeline for shovels in the ground.
The Liberals are asking the National Energy Board for a redo of its Trans Mountain environmental review, this time taking the impact of increased tanker traffic into account. The Natural Resources Minister says he'll point the NEB to work that's already been done.
Recent actions taken by the government to protect southern resident killer whales and implement the Oceans Protection Plan.
That addresses one part of the court ruling.
The Federal Court of Appeal determined that the conduct of the federal government in its consultation with Indigenous peoples simply did not hit the legal mark that's been set by the Supreme Court of Canada, and that was one of the key reasons that they quashed or set aside the approval of the Trans Mountain project.
Minister Amarjeet Sohi was asked again and again when new Indigenous consultations would happen and when the pipeline could ultimately be built.
We are focused on getting this project right.
What about whether the consultation timeline aligns with the 5.5 months he's giving the NEB?
We are focused on getting this project right.
There are no timelines for shovels in the ground, no timeline for completion, no timeline for jobs.
The federal NDP, who are opposed to the expansion, say a review do-over won't change anything.
You can't have meaningful consultations if you've already made up your minds. Justin Trudeau has already made up his mind on this project.
Alberta's premier says she's still out of the federal climate plan until construction permits are approved.
The issue is whether those timelines start to slip, and that is where we will engage very ferociously should we see that happening.
I think it's difficult to put a timeline on consultations. You really have to go in with an open mind. If you don't, the courts may rule that you didn't do it properly.
Abigail, we've been talking about this pipeline for years. It's hard to keep track of all the delays. Why is the timeline especially important right now?
Donna, there are the practical reasons. 5.5 months for the NEB review puts us to March, but it doesn't mean shovels hit the ground then, because there's no word on when Indigenous consultations will begin, much less end, and that puts another construction season in jeopardy. Then there are the political reasons. Rachel Notley perhaps hearing the clock ticking the loudest, with an Alberta election next spring and a federal election in the fall. Donna?
All right, Abigail in Ottawa, thanks.